Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea or your water, sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the stars above today. And happy Friday, everyone. So we have the weekend to look forward to. And just because we've missed them so much today, we have Pia and Cullen with us. Welcome back, you two.
Thank you.
Glad to be
Glad to
here.
be here.
Yeah, you little globetrotters. Seemed like you were just moving all around the world during that period of time, right?
Well,
Yep.
we did a little bit of traveling, yes.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you both. And how's it going so far?
It's really accelerating. Things are really moving and we're getting pushed in all directions and yay, it's time for changes and just taking it all in. I think everybody's kind of feeling that way a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're in a planning mode. I think we're really taking stock of what's important to us and what we want to be doing.
And that's perfectly in alignment with the 13-day period that we're in right now, which is planting energy, because planning and planting seeds for the future are sort of the same thing. So
I love it.
I guess we're on track with what we're supposed to be doing.
Right. I always think of these first few weeks of the year as the dream time, so that it is a time for us to plan and to look ahead and to, determine which way the wind is blowing, where's our heart tugging us, and so forth. It's just definitely not a hit the ground running kind of a date that our calendar begins on, which I find is unfortunate. Kind of predisposes us to thinking that on January 1st or January 2nd, that you've got to hit the ground running and have all your, resolutions out there. And it just doesn't work that way energetically.
No.
Not at all.
It's so contrived that I think it has pulled all of us humans out of the natural cycles, right? Of the way that the rhythm and flow of the seasons move, the way that the rhythm and flow of our own personal lives and our ages and things like that create for us. We've lost touch with it, right? Because artificially everything begins January.
Yes. Absolutely. That is precisely why we wanted to bring this calendar to the public, was basically to help people understand about the rhythms that you just described and getting back to nature and realizing that so much of our lives are artificially controlled with dates and timings that really don't work. I mean, we really believe that the new year starts in the spring, in March, not in January.
Me too. Amazingly.
It's amazing how we have absolutely designed our lives around what we were told for centuries, millennia actually, that this is who you are and this is what you're supposed to do. And it hasn't worked very well yet. And I think that's a signal. If it doesn't work, let's try something new.
But you know what's even more insidious is that most people don't even realize that it doesn't work.
That's true.
The illusion, you are so on target, Janet. The illusion is so great that people don't even understand that actually what we're talking about right now, for the most part.
I mean, you, my fellow listeners out there, I'm sure, because you've already heard me talk about this already several times over the last few months, as the periodical that I write for we're moving it to be a March to March publication. And we did that in recognition of the fact that the real year begins at 0 Aries, which is on March 20th, i.e. the spring equinox. And we're just trying to right the ship because things have felt so off kilter. I mean, who begins things in the dead of winter, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere? Right?
We're doing the same thing with the Pleiadian-Earth energy calendar. We're going to do next year. We're going to start the new year in March.
I love it. We're all getting on board. And by the way, for everyone out there, the 2025 Pleiadian-Earth, sorry, my light frame there is casting a glare, but this is out, and people can still purchase it, right, by going to the Larkma website. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, there
Okay.
is a digital online version, and there's a link if you want to print it. There's a link where you can download the printer to a flash drive, take it to your printer, and he'll print it for you.
Yeah.
If you want to
Nice.
print.
We like having the physical calendar as you are holding it and touching it right now.
Mhm.
For me, it's like the difference between reading a physical book or reading a book that's digitally produced on a screen. I still like to touch and feel what I'm involved with. So I like the physical version personally.
Yeah, me too. I do like my digital books too, because then if I'm out and about, I can read it without having, to have carded it with me. But there's just something about the tactile connection between, your hands, the book or calendar, and your eyes, and how you take in all that information. So if you prefer that, you can take it to get printed, and it'll print out just as beautifully as if it had been, printed by a publisher.
Mhm.
So tell us, where did we enter in the year? Let's go backward in time just a moment. It looks like we entered January 1, as if this means anything, on 4 healing. I guess it does mean something, but
Well, it was in the middle of a collective shadow cycle that began in December, a 3-week collective shadow cycle of bringing things to the top to heal them, address them, approach them, do whatever we needed to do to make changes collectively, not individually, but collectively. Our personal shadow cycles are every 60 days, more or less, but the collective goes through one once or twice a year, every 260 days. So we entered this year in the middle of a collective cycle. The Venus star was and continues to be in Gemini as the evening star, and it'll stay there until it switches over in a few months, but it's there for a couple of months now. And the Venus phase that we are in now, which started on the 11th, is my favorite. It's the phase of wholeness, to remind us that we are whole. Don't belittle ourselves. Don't put ourselves down. Remember that we are wonderful divine beings. It's my favorite phase. So we're in a great phase. We're in planting energy for 13 days that started on the same day Venus turned into the phase for wholeness. So lots to look forward to and lots to plan for becoming who we are.
I love it that they began on the same day.
Me
That's
too.
really, it almost feels like there's something there, a message, a greater message
Yep.
for all of us. And so then if we take that up to where we are today, we're at 7 devoting energy. Tell us about that.
Well, that's midway through this 13-day cycle. 7's always the midway point. And
Yeah.
7 is the energy of merging. So we're probably in a position of merging our perspective about what has been with our dreams of what will be. We're merging that together. We're merging who we were with who we are becoming. We're merging what we need to do to interact with each other on a higher level of conscious awareness. Lots of ways we can look at merging energy. Merging with our star friends, we're merging with Earth. Energy of 7 it's been known in Native American and many other cultures that 7 was always considered a spiritual number. And I
Yeah.
think it's because we have the opportunity to merge with higher realms of thinking and higher energies. So that's what the 7's about. Devoting is about paying attention to what's true and real, not being blindly devoted to some promise you made years ago that no longer fits your life, but
Or some
actually
belief.
belief, don't be devoted to some particular belief, but actually look at who you are, what's going on in your life, who you're choosing to be around, what you're planning to do, and devote yourself. As Larkma always tells us, our Pleiadian friends, they
Mhm.
always say, devote yourself to the truth. That's the highest level of devotion. Whatever is true in your heart, devote yourself to that.
It's a time to look at our loyalties.
Yeah.
Because we often cling to, well, we made a promise. I have to keep my promise because I told someone that I would honestly do this, and it would be dishonoring not to keep that promise going alive. And as things are changing, as they're changing so rapidly right now, we really truly have to look at our loyalties, because we can't keep a loyalty if it no longer works. If it's no longer aligned with the energies that are present, how can we possibly keep doing what we've been doing if it no longer fits?
Mhm.
I'll give you an example of what Cullen's talking about too. Cullen's talking about taking care of ourselves as well as being kind to others. Here's an example of a client that I had recently in the last couple of weeks. Her brother does not get along with her at all. She doesn't get along with him, although she tries, and he continues to be belittling, abusive, and downright mean to her.
Belligerent.
Yes. And undermining, very undermining. But on her mother's deathbed, her mother made the two of them promise to stay in touch with each other. So she feels bound to this promise to keep trying to see him, keep trying to talk to him, which every time she does that, she gets kicked to the face. And I had to tell her, you know, you made that promise to your mother in one set of energies. Your mother is no longer here worried about those things. She's in a different place. I'm quite certain that she would not want you to cling to that promise that was made in other energies. You're free to go. And it was like a light bulb went off in her head. You know,
I love it.
opportunity to choose something different, be loyal to what she feels in her heart instead of a promise that no longer fits her life.
Yeah, we wrote an article, I don't know, a year ago, maybe, Pia,
Year or two, I can't
that was
remember.
published in a number of journals around the world. And the topic was reviewing and looking at the agreements, the loyalties, the things that we thought we should be honoring others, even honoring ourselves about. And in this article, we tried to make people understand that in the energy of when that agreement was made, the energy was a specific thing. It was real at that point. But as we move forward, obviously the energies have changed. And
we change.
How can we continue to align ourselves with something that no longer fits? And I said that a minute ago, but I think what Pia just said is really important. If someone on their deathbed pleads with their relatives, please do this, please do that, it's really only applicable in that moment. It doesn't really move forward. It won't work that way. And I think we all need to be able to go, well, this obviously isn't working. So how can I be loyal to that? Or how can I continue that if it's not helping everybody? If it's not a win-win, it no longer makes sense.
Yeah, and I want everybody to understand we're talking about the word loyalty in terms of devoted, what you are devoting your time, your energy, your thoughts to. We're not talking fealty, which is something that I believe some of our leaders in our world are having as an expectation, right? That just because they've been elevated to this leadership position, that we owe them fealty, or that their followers owe them fealty. That is not correct energy. That is such old, encrusted with lots of junk kind of energy. What we're talking about is, what are we devoted to in our own lives? And in fact, in human design, we talk about devotion um, as commitment. What are we committed to? And of course, those things change over time, right? They change because we change, as you guys pointed out. So devoting is much more about being heart-centered, doing what you feel is correct for you, and not doing things because another person is pressuring you to be or do something. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope that does, because that's a huge thing. It's a big thing now, right? As the things are changing energetically on the planet. So a great conversation for us to have today.
It's a great energy to be in, and it's a great energy to lead into what we come into tomorrow over the weekend, because we move into illuminating energy, which by the name of it, it brings in more light, but light shines into the shadows. So often there's a lot of drama in illuminating energy, which if you've already looked at, okay, what am I really devoted to in my heart? When the shadows come up, you can go, I'm going to shine the light this way. This is what I want to do. This is what feels right. And then the following day on Sunday, we move into choosing energy. So we've got the perfect pattern as this calendar always unfolds for setting things up to make good choices.
Indeed, indeed. And then as we, keep moving through the cycles, because these things are cyclical and they do repeat on different, obviously different days. Um, we get a chance to see how we're evolving, how our consciousness is evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we begin to evolve, that brings in healing to things that we've let go of. And
Mhm.
as we begin to heal, we see from a higher perspective. And as we begin to see from a higher perspective, we begin to intuit. And it just keeps going and going all the way until we get to the place of enlightening energy where we're lighter. We carry more light. We've done our work.
Everything we've just discussed has to do with transformation.
Yeah.
Because we're here to transform who we are, who we thought we were. And by using the energies in this calendar, we actually are creating a transformative paradigm, a transformative platform to change, to be different. And when I say different, I don't mean completely changing our personality necessarily or changing our astrological makeup. I'm only talking about positive transformation, rubbing off some of the sharp edges, so to speak. Just looking at, well, maybe I could do a little bit better job in this part of how I approach things or how I deal with people. So I think it's really wonderful that what we're talking about in this discussion is simply transforming to make things better, to make things smoother, to create more grace and flow in our lives.
And maybe even to understand that there's something greater at work in the
Mhm.
world, in this reality that we're all a part of as individuals, but we're also part of as a collective.
Mhm.
And I find that, understanding is the hard part, right? That is just so elusive sometimes, right? We
Mhm.
want to make it something. We really are people that like to categorize and compartmentalize and, have a list and make sure it's all compact. But understanding doesn't work that way, does it?
No.
No.
No. And there is understanding energy in the Pleiadian calendar. I believe is it the 12th day,
Mhm.
the energy of 12? So
Yes.
we end up coming to that universally each week or each
Yes. Each
Pleiadian week.
each 13-day period, we
Yeah.
build to a point of deeper understanding. Yes. And then once we get to that point of deeper understanding, we immediately begin to be able to integrate it at 13. And then we
Mhm.
start over again. And we are at another level if we've done our work. If we haven't done our work, we're doing the same loop over and over again.
Like Groundhog Day or something.
Yeah.
Which, sometimes it feels like that's what humanity is doing, right?
Yes.
Over and over cycles repeat. And so, interestingly enough, 9 choosing Sunday is the same day that the sun will change signs and move into Aquarius energy, which is very forward looking, right?
Mhm.
Very much progressive energy, looking to the future. Um, and 9 choosing, I mean, obviously these days aren't going to be the same every year for the Pleiadian calendar, even though for us in astrology, every 19th or 20th of January, the energy shifts to Aquarian energy. So it's also interesting, I think, to look at the bigger cycles of all of these different ways of counting time, as it were, right? To
Yeah.
see the bigger cycle. So we're looking, we started with one planting this week, right? Back on the
Yes.
11th, which was also the day that the nodes shifted out of Aries and Libra and into Pisces and Virgo. Right? That gives us a whole new beginning right there even. What seeds do you wanna plant from spirit, from your heart? And what, of the more practical, mundane, perfectionistic tendencies of Virgo do you wanna release in
Mhm.
order to be more grounded in, and balanced and in harmony with yourself? So I just like the symmetry of the systems as they come together.
That's one of the things we've talked about this many times on your show together. I love it when things overlap because it shows us that many truths can come from different situations, different systems, different ways of trying to figure out the whole picture. But when things fit together so closely, it's like there is a plan here. Something really is moving together forward. And it just makes me smile because it tells us that this is not a random universe. This is not an accidental situation. These things fall together on purpose to show us that there's a meaningful, I don't know what to call it. It's a meaningful operation that
there's some kind of cosmic design.
Yeah, it's bigger.
Yeah.
It's bigger than just randomness or even just possibility. It's bigger than that.
Well, and what we also need to remember is all of this is a construct, right?
Mhm.
Time is a construct. And if you try to live outside of time, you somehow don't fit in with society. Like just try showing up at work at 10 a.m. when you were supposed to be there at 8, right? You're going to hear it from everybody there, that, hey, you're late. When in reality, we're just we're forcing ourselves into a constraint. And I'm really irritated by that, right? I really would rather, I know we have to have some kinds of constraint. We are on an Earth, which is a planet that is very, much in 3D and grounded and all of that, supposedly. But also, it's just annoying that we get so caught into these production-oriented type things, that we don't get to live in alignment with anything. So it's funny because we have to work hard to stay in alignment, to be in alignment with the cosmic signs, rather than just going with that flow. Yet if we were to just go with that flow, everything would work out in its right and proper way. It just
Absolutely.
Janet, our Pleiadian friends Larkma have been telling us this very thing for 2 decades. And now, lately, they have been saying, as the veil is thinning, more voices from the light are coming through. And I can attest that they're speaking through me on a regular basis. Cullen and I'll be in the kitchen preparing food. And all of a sudden, I'll say, we have to sit down now. We have to talk. And somebody will be showing up and giving us more information. And it's becoming a daily part of our lives. So our lives are shifting to be more in that flow instead of, no, we're doing this now. There's no structure around it. It's more flow. In fact, I'm going to bring some of these voices to light in a 5-morning cosmic guidance session where they speak. Mary Magdalene, her daughter Sarah, the Starfleet captain from Quantimo from the Arcturians. Larkma will speak and Cullen will join me one day. Lots of these different beings from different places are bringing us a perspective about here's the truth, here's a different way to see it, and here's how you can put it together in your own reality individually. You don't have to buy any kind of dogma that somebody is telling you this is it. You can feel it and you can go with it. And you can expand and you can grow and you can evolve.
Yeah, here's a great example. If I can go backwards to the thought about bad timing, when we're forced to do things as you described that just don't fit in our cyclical, hormonal, natural rhythm of life. Here's something that has been so obvious to me. Junior high age kids, high school age kids in their teens do not like getting up early in the morning to go to school. It's against their rhythm. At that age, when puberty is in its raging evidence, those kids want to sleep in. They do not want to get up at 6:37 and get to school by 7:45 or 8 o'clock or even 9 o'clock. School should start later because those kids cannot perform when they're sleepy, sluggish,
Grumpy.
grumpy, out of sorts. It's been painfully obvious to me watching this all of my life, and nobody listens. Educators, psychologists, teachers, they have not figured out that these kids are not at their optimal place of learning and socializing. If they're grumpy, they don't want to be in a crowd. They don't want to listen to the school bells ring and tell them, okay, you've got to be awake. You've got to be alert. That's just one little tiny example of being forced to do things that don't work. And it's a simple example, but it's real. It's truthful.
It's so easy to just stop believing it has to be a certain way and create something new. It's really easy. You just let go of the rules and regulations and go, hey, do you guys agree that maybe we should do this and it'd be a little better, and do it?
New paradigm.
Yeah.
Woo. And yet little kids, if my grandsons that are younger, they're up at like 6 a.m.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and raring to go. Like, let's do something, Grandma. Let's do something. Okay. Let's do it.
School teachers should start early, and middle school and high school should start late, and the world would be way happier.
Yeah.
But what's funny? I did hear some educators talking about this. It's niggling at the back of my mind. I don't remember who I was talking to, but they were saying that they were observing that exact same thing, right? That the older kids should start at least an hour later than what they start now. And the younger kids, let them start earlier. But, they have it kind of backwards. The older kids are starting earlier and the younger kids start later.
Exactly.
Or, they start somewhat near the same times. So that's just like one example of devotion gone wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
Fealty to a system.
Mm-hmm.
That makes zero sense, right? That makes really no logical sense. Although I agree that we have to have some kind of symmetry or some kind of collection of energies that are going to keep us sort of together, right? You can't have some kids starting at 8 and some kids starting at 10, some starting at 11. That our system isn't built for that. In fact, it would defy the word system if that were the case. It would be a little bit like anarchy. But something that relaxing some of those stringent belief systems that we have about the way things work or the way things should be.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing to think about. It's like untethering yourself from all the shoulds and all the have tos, right?
Yes.
I love that. I'm going to wax a little bit astrological here for a few minutes, and then we'll come back to see how these trigger a new set of conversations here. Because this happens to be a weekend where there's not like a lot of crazy things happening. But there are some really important transits that are occurring starting today with the sun sextile to Neptune. Now, a sextile is a 60-degree relationship between the planets. So the sun at the end of Capricorn and Neptune at the end of the sign of Pisces. And it's harmonious. There's some harmony going on between the light of our personalities and Neptune, our connection to spirit or to our higher self. And together, it's actually like the sun can actually help ground in the spiritual, bring some discipline even to the spiritual energy of Neptune when they are in a sextile. And this is a closing sextile, meaning, all cycles of planets to each other begin with the conjunction when they're at 0 degrees of the same or whatever degree of the same sign. So, for example, the sun and Neptune conjunct during Pisces time. So either, later in February or up to mid-March. And that begins their cycle, the cycle of sun and Neptune. And then as the sun moves on and moves faster, it creates different relationships with Neptune. So it's like having a 13-day week, right? Where you start with the energy of something new and then it works its way through different phases or different energies that we're learning about or evolving through until they get back to one another again, which the Sun and Neptune won't do until we get into later in March, mid-March, I'm guessing. And so at this point, they are close to closing out what began for them last March. Does all that
Mm.
make sense? Like they're going through this regular cycle. So, some key points to keep in mind during this weekend, today, tomorrow, it'll be for the next several days actually, is to keep the ignition of your imagination and your creative energies inspiring you, right? Keep them close by, right? Keep them close to your heart. Explore new ideas that might be popping up at this particular time. It's a great time to engage in artistic endeavors or brainstorm what kind of innovative solutions might be available to you for the problems that you've been having, or to, for me right now, it's the answer to the question, well, what am I going to share with people over this next year? Like, what is it that I want to bring out? So that's a part of the sextile energy. It does jive with the dream time that I was talking about for these next few weeks before we really get energized to take action forward. Emotional depth. With Neptune and Pisces, we are in that tuned in space of our emotions, of our intuition. I almost chuckled a little bit, Pia, because you said that you might be making dinner and suddenly you have, a tug from the beings that want to come through. And that's a part of this, Neptune culminating at this point, his transit through Pisces, right? Where he's moving. He's moving March 30th into Aries. He'll make his way back to Pisces later in the year, but everything is coming to a head as it relates to Neptune at this point in time. So we have this emotional depth, we have this intuitive depth, we have this connection to either spirit, however you want to frame that, whether it's spirit, whether it's our dearly departed, whether it is, some kind of prophetic vision for the future, but it's all right there, right? It's all right there. While Neptune encourages us to dream big, right? There's this kind of unboundaried energy with Neptune. Capricorn, of course, wants more structure, wants it to be more grounded, more practical, more useful, more real, right? So we have sort of realistic spirituality, I guess you could say, at this moment in time, realism and idealism that are coming into a blend with one another. And so it also makes this a great time for introspection, for dreaming, for spiritual exploration. Get your oracle cards out, get your pendulums out, get your meditation on, and see what kind of energies are present for you. So right now, you're being asked to embrace both the practical and the imaginal, or the idealistic, or the spiritual, and blend those things into your creative and intuitive nature, and then giving you this wonderful opportunity to, create from create maybe new pathways into personal projects or into creative adventures. So deepen your relationships with spirit, that type of thing. Explore your spiritual side. So that happens, that's actually activated right now. So today. So it's kind of interesting, I think, in the bigger scope of what we've been chatting about so far this morning, to see, really where are we in a cycle, right? We're not really at the, start your engines, or maybe you're starting your engines so they can idle and get warmed up, but it really isn't the green flag yet to race off forward. Yeah. Let's take a look at what people are talking about out here in our people land, our chat. Good morning to Julie. Good morning to Terry. And J-Lo, hello. She says, smash the like button on your way in to support today's broadcast. Lovely. Thank you so much for the reminder. Hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button, and then share the video with your social media. Diana lives in New Orleans and says that snow is possible.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So hopefully it is peaceful snow and not crazy snow for you guys. J-Lo says hello to all of us. Gayla, good morning. She says hello, galactic friends. I love that. Pam Z, good morning. Christine, good morning. Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel, hello to you. And J-Lo says, yes, Cullen, the energy is felt through the papers. She's talking about the calendar, but whether it's digital or is it a book that we have in our hands, we feel the energy. She says she's a printer addict. That's funny, J-Lo, because I've had to keep moving my printing. I have like a printing, I don't even know what to call it, an app, and it keeps track of the number of pages I use and then sends me printer ink at the appropriate time, right? So I don't have to think about it. It's
Oh,
me.
that's great.
And then they just send me the cartridges and it's like no brainer. Oh, okay, got to change them. So yeah, I'm a printer addict as I have to keep moving up in the level of payment because I print so much. Lana, good morning to you. She says, lovely to see Pia, Colin, and Janet today. Love to all. Pam Z, Colin, that is so true. Thanks for the reminder. Colleen, good morning to you. And Nicole Markham, good to have you with us today. Teddy and Patty, hello to you. Tom W. Uh-oh, where did my friends go? You blinked out for a moment. Are you getting the tug from your friends that you have to go speak to them?
No, we're
Nope,
here.
nope.
We're here.
That's so funny. You just disappeared.
We can see you.
And then you came back. Let's see. Good morning, Tom. He says, counting on you all from Howdy. I'm not sure what he's talking about there, but that's okay. Teddy says that dang 11 is popping up again. 11 is all around, I swear. Tom says, I love how they all fit together. I call it pet symmetry, a reference to Pet Cemetery. A book by Stephen King. Leilani, good morning to you. And Colleen says, if little kids started early, it would get rid of the need for daycare before school. Ooh, good one. Christine, many parents have been asking for that for decades, right? What parents know, the teachers also know, but they just feel powerless to do anything about, I'm guessing. Natasha, who actually works in the school district, with schools, the old stories, sports, money for school districts, the older kids need to be available after school. School times are the reputation of the old paradigm. Sports are such a big deal. I get that, but it shouldn't come at the cost of learning, right? And that's what we've done. J-Lo, I wonder if it has to do with Venus. I get tons of tugs in the kitchen and the shower, right? Exactly when you can't do anything about it, right? Your hands are all in the vegetables, cutting them up, and you can't just stop. Or you're washing your hair, and what are you going to do, right? Laughs, laugh out loud. That's for sure. J-Lo, I have the same thing. The HP printer ink. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. And Debbie says they're expecting snow. Also, she's in Florida.
Wow.
Unusual weather.
It's weird. So here in Washington, typically in January, we get some close to 4 inches of rain. And right now we're at about an inch. Right at this point in the month, we are supposed to be somewhere about 3 to 4 inches. It has been dry. It has been weird. I mean, we've had rain, but not like usually we are getting watersheds of rain. And it has not gotten really, really cold. We haven't had any snow. It's like it all went east this year. And then California with all the fires. I know when we have nice weather where I am, that likely the Santa Anas are set up for SoCal. And that's exactly what's been happening for them that triggered such the conflagration over the last couple of weeks. It's pretty sad, actually. Pauline says she is confused about an upcoming event that you're doing, February 18th to March 18th. Thought it was 5 in the morning, maybe a typo, but daylight savings time is mentioned. So is it 30 days?
No, it's Tuesday mornings, every Tuesday morning, starting on February 18th. And it's it's listed as 8 in the morning Mountain Time. So for Pacific time, that would be 7. And you have to there's a time chart on the page that tells you wherever you are, what time it will start. It's an hour and a half each Tuesday morning, and various voices will be coming through me, giving a message, and then there'll be time for people to ask questions afterwards. So it's a community gathering of those who are interested in hearing different perspectives from the voices of life that have been nudging me, saying, hey, we want to share too. So we're going to
Awesome.
share. Yeah.
So Pauline is in New York, I believe it is. So that would be at 10 a.m. her time. Is that correct? No,
I
Mountain.
think
Yeah, 2 a.m.
Look,
I mean,
I think
10
that's right.
a.m. Yeah,
Yeah.
for New York. All right. I hope that clears it up, Pauline. If you still have any questions, let us know. Colleen also says New Jersey is expecting snow, but it's January. So I guess what she's saying is that's pretty typical for them. It is typical for us to get snow too, but not this year. We don't get a lot of snow, thankfully, but it would be weird to get snow in Florida and New Orleans, but not in the Pacific Northwest.
Mhm.
It's odd, very odd. Now, Pauline has another question. Are you still at Out of This World with Ted Marr?
We haven't been on Ted Marr's show in a long time. I don't know what Ted's up to these days, but our timing has not synced, so we haven't joined his show in a while.
Okay, good questions. So what else should we talk about? Maybe I should go on to Venus conjunct Saturn. That's the next transit for the weekend. It actually is on Saturday. And again, right, we were talking about planets and they have this cycle where they come together and then they start to separate and they move into different relationships with one another. And the Venus conjunct Saturn is occurring in Pisces because that's where it is right now. And it brings together, right? Conjunctions bring things together, right? It's the starting point. And it brings the energies of love and relationships and discipline and responsibility, right? Venus and Saturn. And it's going to be all sort of flavored by the dreamy, imaginative, compassionate energy that is Piscean. So the combination can have a couple of notable influences. One, issues around commitment and seriousness in relationships can come up during this period of time. It encourages us to be more serious about those relationships or to be really authentic in uh, recognizing, are we, I'm going to use devoted. I love that word today. Are we devoted correctly in our relationships? I'm not saying that, if you're in a relationship, you have to be 100% devoted, but taking a look at that during this period of time to decide whether or what level of commitment you have in those relationships. Maybe you discover you desire to build a more solid foundation with the person that you are with, or maybe you realize that you've held back from being serious about that relationship. Because Pisces is water, there's also the emotional boundary issue. Saturn's influence here can help us to establish that healthy boundary within our relationships, ensuring that all of our emotional needs are met, but also respected, and respecting both in the relationship so that we don't lose ourselves in the process of partnering with someone else, right? Partnering doesn't mean disappearing. Like, it doesn't mean that you disappear into one another and, lose your individuality. This is the process of coming together and honoring individuality while you're coupled, right, or put together. So it's also very practical energy. Venus in Pisces is exalted. She is very happy in Pisces. She's dreamy, she's romantic, and she's in love with love. She's compassionate and empathetic. So she's in la la land. But Saturn in Pisces is saying, okay, but let's bring all of that love together and do something with it, right? What are we going to do with it? So there's a bit of practicality in love, right? It's, when the blush of romance is gone, what's left, right? That's maybe some of the things we might be considering. There's artistic discipline. there's a lot of artistry here available with Venus and Pisces as well, and Saturn's influence saying, okay, well, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to show people your art? And by art, I don't just mean like, things that we do like painting and drawing and whatever, but artistry in your business, artistry in your own personal life. Anything that requires creativity can be brought to a sort of focus point, a point of practicality. And then I I'm throwing this part in even though it's not necessarily explicit, but what about self-worth?
Mm.
Venus represents that part of us that feels worthy or not worthy, such as the case may be. And Saturn's influence with Venus here might cause us to really reflect on how our choices reflect healthy self worth or low self esteem, right?
Mhm.
So, looking at that, even if it is a decision that you're making within your relationship, right? Because all of that is going to come in. It's whispering, right? It's all whispering there. So work on any of the insecurities that you have, and build a stronger sense of self-esteem because your relationships will reflect that healthier sense of self-esteem, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so overall, Venus conjunct Saturn sets us up for the next several months of that Venus Saturn cycle, creating more coherence, let's say, with our self worth, our creativity, our love in relationships, and how we practically live those things out. And of course, Saturn himself is going to make a move, right? Of course, Venus will too, but he will be moving into Aries as we get further into the year. May 24th, I want to say it is. And then the sun moves into Aquarius on Sunday. Sunday, 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 right? And the energy shift from Capricorn to Aquarius is on one hand subtle, but on the other hand, pretty profound, right? When you think about the differences between the two, but they have a common ruler in Saturn. So Saturn as a planet is the ruler of Capricorn energy and rules all of the traditions, right? The older, mature energies, the responsibility energies, the planning and goal setting and ambition of Capricorn energy. But the sign of Aquarius is different. It is Saturn looking forward, being concerned with the sustainability of something, right? If we're holding ourselves to tradition, but it isn't sustainable, when we get to Aquarius, that becomes glaringly obvious and something that we have to contend with. So the energy shift, feels similar because the same planet holds rulership, at least from a traditional sense. But it is very different because in our modern world, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and he adds that revolutionary energy to it. He adds the liberation and the freedom, the idea of awakening and having things happen that you don't expect, that shake us up, right? That make us wake up and do something different. So embrace change, right? This month of January 20th through the end of or February 19th, I believe it is Aquarian devoted energy. We're embracing change, exploring the new, being innovative, thinking outside of the box. And it's a community sign. So we're connecting with community, adding our value to the value of others and focusing then on future goals. And it's a good period of time for us to really be in that imagining mind and maybe seeing what some new intentions could be as we, move closer to the spring equinox in March and thinking about what your long-term aspirations and goals are. And at that same time on Sunday seems to be a big day. We
Mm.
also have Mercury involved in a couple of different planets. One, and he's in Capricorn as well right now, and he'll be in a sextile, a harmonious relationship with Saturn. And Mercury in Capricorn will also sextile Venus, obviously, because Saturn and Venus are in a conjunction. They're in the same space. So Mercury comes along and says, oh, hey, hi, Venus. Hi, Saturn. And they work well together. So, two inner planets working well with the planet of discipline and structure and form bodes well, I think, for us for the weekend. Maybe clear communication is one of the outpicturings of the energy for the weekend. Problem solving energy, being able to think outside of the box and see how new solutions can be applied to even the oldest, most dogged problems that we have. And then planning and organization might also be a part of this. Creative expression, strengthening our relationships through communication. So the transits for this weekend are actually like filled with opportunities for us to be innovative, for us to be communicative, for us to evaluate our relationships and balance um, everything in our own lives, really. Does that go along with the Pleiadian energies for this weekend, Pia?
It absolutely does, and it'll carry us through when we get into that. It'll carry us through all the way to the end of this 13-day period on the 23rd. So it's all perfectly aligned with everything that you've said. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good weekend for us to not necessarily take new action yet. And I am really tempering for myself what it is that I'm revving up to do, because I recognize that to do it in the winter would be a bit out of the cycle of time. So it really does make more sense for us right now to really be considering, what would I like to do? What could I put my time and effort behind? Um, and there's plenty of time for new beginnings. Next week is also the beginning of the new human design year, which, interestingly enough, the new human design year is not like January 1st, where it's like go, 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 make those resolutions and stick with them. It isn't that at all. It enters in at the gate 41, which is the gate of imagination.
Hmm.
So the human design new year says, okay, what do because if you can't imagine it, you can't create it. So all the years in human design begin with this idea of imagination and fantasy. Like, if I could fantasize my perfect life, what would that look like? And then there is time as the weeks roll by to start taking action on those imaginings. So, even though they call it the human design new year, that doesn't imply jumping out and taking action. Makes sense, right? And I'm curious now, just because I'm a Gemini and I'm curious, where does March 20th land in the Pleiadian Earth calendar? And it looks like that becomes for choosing.
New foundation. 4 is foundational energy. So it's choosing a new foundation as we move forward. And it comes in the 13-day period of feeling energy, which is feel into what you want to create. Don't be emotional and overreact. Feel from your heart of how you want to go forward. So it's a great combination for starting the new year. And that same week, we have a Venus change and a Venus star change. So Venus moves out from being a Gemini evening star into Aries morning star, joining all this Aryan energy moving forward, and the phase moves into completion.
Yeah, that, and that at that point in time, Venus is preparing. She is actually starting her retrograde cycle. I want to say it is March 1st through April 12th. And I might have those dates off just a little bit. So it also tells us that there's a time period, even though it's the beginning of the new astrological year, for us to reconsider where our hearts are aligned, right?
Mhm.
And where it is that we really feel like we want to devote, I'm going back to my word there this morning, our time. And, I want to ask you before, we end today, there's been a lot of talk astrologically about the meaning of the changes that start this year in terms of the timeline and its relationship to war, right? And on the planet, with Neptune moving into Aries, Saturn moving into Aries, and in July, Uranus moving into Gemini. All of those things that last happened during World War II, during the Civil War, during Revolutionary War, the French Revolution even. Has Larkma or your intuitive guides said anything specific about all of this Aries energy that's coming up?
Yes, they have.
Absolutely.
It's the end of the Kali Yuga. It's the end of a whole very long cycle. Why don't you talk about that?
What we're getting from many of our friends, and I don't mean human friends, is that these cycles are really coming around again, as you mentioned, all of those different 3 or 4 specific battling times, that those energies are going to be present again, and there will be saber rattling, there will be possibility of huge arguments, huge disagreements, nationalities, resources, all kinds of things. So the information we're getting is it's quite possible that there will be some pretty big struggles between the so-called powerful nations.
But they also remind us that war begins inside. It begins at the beginning. Where are you at conflict within yourself, within your relationship, within your partner, within your belief systems? War begins there. And we live on a planet of choice. And just because there's saber rattling does not mean we have to stand in line and go, I'm patriotic. Whatever my government says, I'm going to do. We can listen to our hearts and do the right thing. And I misspoke something pretty important. I said the Venus phase that starts up in March on the 22nd. I looked at it wrong and read completion, but we complete a Venus phase earlier that month. When we go into our spring equinox, the Venus phase that happens on the 22nd is inception, new beginning, which is more in alignment with what we're talking about. So yes, the old is going to shake the bones, rattle the sabers, try to pull us and draw us into old conflict, because that's where the leaders feel comfortable. They're comfortable with fighting. We, the people, don't want that anymore. So we, the people, have to align with the cosmic energies that are going to be pouring in March and go, we don't choose that. We choose something different.
So the possibility of war, people are talking about World War III. I mean, it's become such a trite subject matter. So many people are saying, well, China and Russia, it's World War III is right around the corner. P is absolutely right. It's a choice point. If people don't run their energy in that direction, it won't happen. We need to be conscious. We need to be outrageously positive that we can get along, that we can change all of those animosities, all of those conflicts they're politically, militarily, economically driven. They're not about us. They're not about people. They're about belief systems, paradigms, power. And it's high time that the population simply throws their hands up and say,
enough.
We've had it. We're not going to do this anymore. We don't want to make a profit out of war, because that's what war does. People make more money during wars than they do in non-war times. We need to step away from that mindset and say, hey, let's use that money to feed people. Let's use that money to build new bridges. Let's use that money to do good things.
But remember, it starts within. It starts with not having to be right in an argument and saying, maybe it's a different way of seeing things. Maybe I don't have to push my point. It starts with being kind to somebody you really don't like, being kind to them anyway. It starts from within. And as we actually change, it ripples outwards, and it will continue to ripple and continue to ripple. So if we're looking for a peaceful world, we got to find it in here first. We have to be whole.
I couldn't agree more. Right?
We have a friend that recently gave us T-shirts that says,
"Just smile
and be kind." And if we adopt that as a way of being collectively, there's no space for war. There's no space for beating each other up. It's
Right.
easier to be kind than it is antagonistic.
Mhm.
It's like that old saying, it's easier to smile than it is to frown. And we have the ability to switch all of these paradigms, all of these belief systems. It's time to get along. It's just time to get along.
And by no means does peace or getting along equal complacency,
No,
No,
absolutely not.
not at all. Stand
you're
up
not
for what
rubber stamping, you know, the
Oh,
uglies out there. What you're saying is, from the position that I'm taking, it's all love, and that's how I'm gonna show up. And
yes.
then that's what ripples out of you.
Perfectly said, Janet. Perfectly said.
absolutely.
Yeah, I can say that because I'm in remembering energy. Remember,
Good.
which is deer in the Mayan calendar. Same thing though, this energy that don't ever think a deer just because they're peacefully grazing on your lawn can't knock the bejeebs out of you if you're encroaching on them or doing something, you know, horrible. Like complacency is not equatable to that.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right, so that's it for us today. Next month, Pia and Cullen will join me on Valentine's Day, and that is, of course, February 14th, the second Friday instead of the third Friday, and that means we get to see you sooner.
We look forward. We look
Yeah.
forward to it.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you all with us. Pia and Cullen, as always, of course, I thank you for being with me. It's always fun to share and hear where it is that we're going to go with our conversation. Everybody take care. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Bye for now.